It started with a dream. Not the deep, symbolic kind you write about in a notebook the next morning, but a sharp, jolting image that ripped me out of sleep with my throat dry and fists clenched. In the dream, I was standing in the hallway of our house, but all the doors were missing. I could see inside every room. Every corner was exposed. Couldn't look away. And in the bedroom, there she was, laughing with someone I couldn't see, her back arched, mouth open, no sound coming out, just the look. That look. Not one she ever gave me. I woke up drenched in sweat, and she wasn't in bed. 4:17 a.m. Our bed was half made, like she hadn't meant to fall asleep there in the first place. The house was silent except for the hum of the fridge and the ticking of the clock in the hallway that was 2 minutes fast. I got up, walked past the bathroom dark, checked the kitchen empty. She was in the guest room. Again. She told me it was because of my snoring, which was new, by the way. Apparently I'd developed it, like a habit or a tumor. She was lying on the guest bed, wrapped in a blanket, phone under her pillow. Not asleep, I could tell. Her breathing changed the second I entered. Shallow, cautious, like she was pretending to be asleep but doing a terrible job of it. I didn't say a word. I just stared. My heart wasn't racing. It was waiting, listening. I turned around, walked out, didn't sleep a minute more. The next day, everything became obvious because I wasn't trying to deny it anymore. The way she locked her phone the second I walked by. The way her eyes darted when I asked simple questions like, "What time's your meeting?" And, "Did you get the package from the porch?" The way she laughed a little too hard at her phone screen, then set it face down like it was radioactive. I didn't snoop. Not yet. I waited. Because if you've ever felt betrayal simmering under the surface, you know the moment it boils, it spills fast. It happened 3 nights later. She was in the shower. Her phone buzzed on the bathroom counter. A message preview flashed before the steam swallowed it. I caught one word. Again? That was enough. I didn't open the phone. I didn't need to. I grabbed a pen, wrote on the mirror in the fog. He lit my fire. "You dimmed my soul. Call it marriage. I call it mourning." The exact words she'd scribbled days ago on that receipt she left on the coffee table. She didn't think I saw it. She didn't even remember leaving it out. But I burned it into memory. When she stepped out of the shower and saw those words on the mirror, her face didn't shift into shock or guilt. She smirked. "Barely. But it was there. Did you go through my stuff?" That was her first line. No, what's this? No denial. No panic. Just an accusation like I'd broken a rule in a game I didn't know we were playing. I didn't answer her. I just watched. Her hair dripping. Her towel twisted carelessly around her like she was getting ready for a show that I wasn't invited to. She met my stare, narrowed her eyes, and said it again. "You had no right." That's when it hit me, not the betrayal, not the cheating, the disgust, the absolute lack of effort to hide it. She wanted me to know, not because she had a plan, because she had nothing left to lose in this house. I was no longer a risk. I was just furniture. I walked out, not storming, just done. Her voice followed me down the hallway, sharper this time. "Go ahead. Act like a victim. You've been boring for years." I didn't say a word. Not yet. Not until I was standing in the kitchen, staring at the line of light under the guest room door where she'd sleep again, alone or not. I whispered to myself, not for drama, but because it was the only volume my throat could handle. "Now we play by my rules." And that was the beginning of the end. 3 days passed like rotten fruit bruising under the skin. Quiet, but ready to burst. She pretended nothing happened. Moved through the house like we were coworkers at a job neither of us could quit. She cooked once. Just a salad. Left it on the counter like a baited trap. I didn't touch it. The thing is, when someone disrespects you to your face and doesn't even bother hiding it, you start asking yourself the kind of questions you shouldn't have to ask. Like, was I always this invisible? Was she always this cruel and I was just too in love, too blind, or too damn hopeful to see it? I needed truth. Not hints. Not fogged mirrors and cryptic messages. So I did what I swore I wouldn't. I went digging. Not in her phone. She changed her passcode. Sloppy. From a 6-digit to a 4-digit. That's not caution, that's laziness. That's a woman who thinks the war is already won. But I didn't touch the phone. I went for the laptop. She always left it open during the day when she was out at her studio. I used to believe that meant working on her online boutique, packaging orders, scheduling pickups. Turns out her boutique had no scheduled pickups that week. What she did have was a folder hidden deep under a bunch of stock image files labeled textures and inspo. Inside were screenshots. Dozens. Conversations between her and him. Not saved chats. Screenshots. Like she was collecting moments. Little digital trophies. One stood out immediately. Dated 2 weeks ago. Him, tell him you're at the warehouse. I want to see that fire again. Last time wasn't enough. Her, he thinks I'm buying new hangers. Pathetic. I stared at the word pathetic until it lost meaning. Another message hit harder. Him, do you think he knows? Her, even if he did, what would he do? Cry? Write a poem. She knew me too well. I used to write poems. She'd read them out loud, kiss my forehead like I was some kind of sensitive genius. Now they were weapons in her mouth. Mockery in group chats with strangers who lit her fire. I didn't rage. No yelling. No smashing things. I emailed the entire folder to myself. Then I printed 3 screenshots, the worst ones. The ones that didn't just prove the affair, but showed the thing that was somehow worse, the utter absence of respect. That night, she came home late. Smelled like citrus and sweat. A different perfume. A different energy. Walked past me on the couch like I was a lamp. I waited until she changed into one of her oversized shirts, the ones she always claimed were just comfy. She sat on the bed scrolling. I stepped into the doorway, folder in hand. She looked up. Not startled. Annoyed. What now? I didn't say a word. I dropped the 3 printed screenshots on the bed in front of her. She stared at them. Didn't even blink. Just let out a tiny, amused huff. Then she picked up the one with the pathetic comment and actually smiled. You went through my laptop? That's rich. Not sorry. Not ashamed. Amused. She stood up. Walked past me. Took a sip of water from the glass on the nightstand. Then turned around, voice sharp as a broken plate. You want to cry about it? You want to play the victim now? Go ahead. But you're not going to guilt me into loving you again. I stepped closer. This isn't about love anymore, I said, voice low. This is about how you chose to turn into a stranger with a knife. She laughed. Laughed. Full, real, unfiltered laughter. Then walked back to the bed, slid under the covers like she'd just come home from a long, successful day. You want to leave? She asked, eyes already closed. Or do you want to keep pretending this can be fixed? That's when I knew. She didn't expect me to leave. She expected me to stay. To break down. To beg. To grovel for the woman who had just spit on our life and was now sleeping like a baby. But she had no idea. I wasn't going to leave. I was going to stay. Just long enough to flip everything. Turn her calm into chaos. Her indifference into obsession. Her comfort into consequence. I whispered again, this time from the hallway where she couldn't hear it but would feel it soon enough. Let the games begin. The next morning she made pancakes. From scratch. With blueberries. Like the kind she used to make on our second anniversaries and slow Sundays. She even played that soft indie playlist she always claimed helped her stay grounded. She hummed along like we were just 2 people in a healthy silence. She didn't apologize. Didn't bring up the screenshots. She just set down the plate, kissed my cheek, yes, kissed my cheek like she hadn't gutted me, and said, I don't want things to be weird between us. I almost choked on the absurdity of it. That's when I understood. I was living in a play. She was the lead. And I was the prop. But I wasn't going to be a background character anymore. No. I was about to become the narrator, the one who changes the ending halfway through the story. So I started small. I began locking the office door where my PC was. I told her it was work stuff. Client confidentiality. She nodded, uninterested. That's when I knew she wasn't curious about me anymore. She assumed she already had me figured out. That was her mistake. Inside that locked room, I created a new email. Bought a burner phone. I wasn't cheating, not even close. I wasn't her. But I was planning. I found the guy him. Not through her texts, not through names. through the IP logs on her own damn boutique website. He was helping her run ads. A marketing friend. I matched the IP to a Facebook ad comment, traced the name to a gym account, found his car in the background of a tagged photo on her friend's page, same car I'd seen once 2 months ago parked 3 blocks from our house when she said she'd gone out for a late walk to clear her head. His name was Caleb, and Caleb liked to take mirror selfies. One of those mirror selfies showed him shirtless in a hotel room with the date stamped on a receipt peeking from the nightstand. That receipt had our anniversary on it. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I did something worse. I made her believe I was slipping. I came home early with grocery bags and left them in the wrong place. Forgot to do the laundry. Left dishes in the sink. I started forgetting things she told me, repeating questions she'd answered hours before. My timing became just off enough for her to think I was unraveling, that I was breaking. She began smiling more, texting more freely. Her whispers into the phone at night grew cocky, careless. I once heard her giggle and say, "He's getting so weird. I think he might actually lose it." I smiled in the dark. Let her think it. Then came the dinner party. I invited 2 of her closest friends. People who, up until now, thought we were working through a rough patch. I cooked something elaborate. Something her affair partner couldn't boil if you gave him instructions tattooed on his forearm. I set the table with candles, lit the fireplace, played our music. She looked cautious for the first time in weeks. During the appetizers, I dropped it. "So, babe," I said casually, knife in hand as I cut the brie. "You ever tell your friends about Caleb?" Her fork stopped midair. One of her friends blinked. "Who's Caleb?" I turned to her. "Oh, he's the guy helping her with her little business. The one who, what was it? Lights her fire." Silence. Her other friend coughed. Uncomfortable. She stared at me like she was calculating the safest response. But she wasn't fast enough. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, slid it across the table. The receipt from the hotel. Dated. Circled. The room chilled. She picked it up slowly. Read it. Folded it back with fingers that were suddenly too calm. "I think you're having a mental break," she said softly, not to me, but to the room. "He's been acting paranoid. I think it's stress. Or maybe something worse." "Oh, she was good." Her friend leaned in. "Wait. Is this true?" I stood up. "You tell me. Is it true, babe?" She stood too. Walked around the table. Took my hand like we were lovers in a tragedy. She looked up at me with eyes wide and wet, pure theater. "Maybe we should talk in private." I leaned close, whispered into her ear so no one else could hear, "You're not the only one who can lie with a straight face." She blinked. Just once. And then, for the first time since this started, she looked afraid. She followed me into the hallway with that same calm, calculated grace she used to reserve for client calls and holiday dinners with my family. The second the guest room door shut behind her, the temperature dropped 10 degrees. "You just humiliated me in front of my friends," she hissed, her voice low but sharp enough to cut drywall. "No," I said, keeping my back to her as I moved toward the window. "I handed you the microphone. You chose the song." She scoffed, stepped closer. "You think you're clever now? What is this, your little revenge arc?" "Because I got bored." I turned, finally facing her. Her arms were crossed, her face tight, lips pressed like she was fighting the urge to either scream or laugh. She didn't know which would serve her better yet. "You didn't get bored," I said. "You got lazy. You thought I was too slow, too blind, too dull to catch the smoke before the fire. And when I did, you wanted me to choke on it." She leaned back against the door, looking at me like I was a broken doll trying to walk upright. "You're being dramatic. This whole thing, printing messages, dinner party exposés, what's next? You gonna hire a marching band and walk around the block?" I stepped forward slowly. Not threatening. Not aggressive. Just precise. "No," I said. "I'm going to dismantle your comfort. Piece by piece." She blinked. "You want me gone?" she asked, folding her arms tighter. "Fine. File for divorce. Sell the house. Go cry in an apartment somewhere with your poetry books and regret. Just don't expect me to care." I smiled. "That's where it gets fun," I said. "Because I'm not leaving. Not yet. You see, you don't get to set the stage, run the show, and then walk away when the audience starts booing." Her jaw tightened. "You're not scaring me," she whispered. I stepped even closer. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to wake you up. Her breath caught just for a second. And that second was everything. It was the first time since the affair came to light that she wasn't in control. She was calculating again, but the numbers weren't adding up like they used to. Then she said something I didn't expect. You really think you're the first man to be cheated on and try to win the moral war? Grow up. You were dead weight, and I cut the rope. Silence wrapped around us. Heavy. Thick. A different kind of betrayal. Dead weight. I repeated slowly. Is that what I was to you? She shrugged. You stopped being interesting. Stopped evolving. You became background. I needed color. Motion. Fire. Not this. And there it was. The truth. Not dressed in shame or apology. Just out in the open. Raw and unapologetic. She didn't regret cheating. She regretted that I found out before she got bored of the affair. I walked out. Didn't slam the door. I just left her there. Silent now. Probably trying to figure out whether I'd cry, scream, or beg next. But I didn't do any of those. I waited until 3 a.m., then packed just enough clothes to raise a question, not an answer. Left the drawers half full, the closet untouched. I wasn't leaving. I was setting a scene. The next morning, I was gone before she woke up. No note. No explanation. Just the lingering echo of control slipping from her hands. She texted me by noon. Where are you? I didn't reply. 2 hours later. So you're running now? I let it sit. Cold. Quiet. Then finally, at midnight, if you're trying to make me feel guilty, it's not working. But it was. Because she messaged again the next day. You're acting crazy. This isn't you. Come home. Let's talk. That was when I knew she felt the void. She'd planned for confrontation. She'd even prepared for a breakdown. But she hadn't counted on silence. On absence. On the sharp sting of being ignored by someone who used to orbit her every breath. I let her sit in it. For days. Then I sent her one photo. The hotel receipt. With one line typed beneath it, you made your fire. Now sit in the smoke. It took her less than 4 hours to respond to the photo. She didn't even pretend to be confused this time. There was no, what is this, or why are you doing this to us? She knew. And that silence on her end, that pause, that hesitation, told me more than any confession ever could. But what she did next, that was her first real mistake. She showed up at my sister's house. I hadn't told anyone yet. Not even my sister, who always had a sixth sense for drama and betrayal, especially when wine was involved. I was crashing at her guest room, playing it cool, saying I needed a break to focus on work. But when I came home that night and saw my wife, standing there in the driveway, arms folded, trying to look soft in that beige trench coat she always wore when she wanted to appear vulnerable, I felt something shift. Not inside me, in her. She was scrambling now, playing defense. My sister stood on the porch, half shocked, half enraged. I could see the gears turning behind her eyes like a lioness calculating whether to claw or wait. I just want to talk to him, she said, eyes flicking to me with a rehearsed tremble. You can't fix a broken window by knocking, my sister said flatly, then turned to me. Tie this up to you. I didn't answer her. I looked straight at my wife, and in that moment, for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't see the woman I married. I saw a stranger. One who had mastered the art of manipulation so thoroughly that she couldn't tell the difference between sincerity and performance anymore. She stepped closer. Can we please talk? Somewhere private. I said nothing, just nodded toward the backyard. Neutral ground. We walked in silence to the garden, where my sister kept wind chimes that never stopped humming. She stood in front of the bench, didn't sit. Look, she started, hands ringing like she was auditioning for guilt. I know you're angry. I know I hurt you. And I'm not saying what I did was right. I didn't expect you to do this, to become this cold. I let her speak. I thought we were already gone, she continued. I thought maybe if you saw how unhappy I was, you'd react. That maybe you'd fight for me again. I laughed. Just once. A bitter, breathy thing that cut through her words like a blade. So you blew up the house to see if I'd rebuild it? I asked. She dropped her gaze. You stopped showing up, she said quietly. You stopped seeing me. No, I said, stepping closer, voice steady. I stopped chasing you. There's a difference. She didn't flinch, but her nostrils flared. Her defense cracked. That delicate little mask she always wore, half empathy, half ego, slid just enough for the truth to peek through. You think Caleb was love? She snapped, suddenly sharp. He was a mirror. He showed me what I was missing. Excitement. Attention. You just faded. And instead of telling me, you invited a stranger into our lives, I said. Not just into your bed. Into the story we built. Into the version of me you fed lies to so you could feel justified. She crossed her arms again. You think I'm proud of it? That it didn't mess me up too? No, I said. I think you're not even sorry. I think you're only here because I slipped out of your grip, and now you're losing control. That hit, because her face changed. Not into tears, not into regret, into anger. You want to punish me? She said, voice tight. Fine. You want to ruin me? Do it. But don't pretend like you were some perfect husband just because you didn't cheat. You were boring, predictable. You never challenged me. There it was, her final card. The one that said, you deserve this, because you were easy to betray. I stepped back, looked her up and down, not in judgment, in farewell. You know what the saddest part is? I said. You didn't fall in love with someone else. You fell in love with the idea that you deserved better. But better doesn't mean louder, wilder, newer. It means deeper. And you ran from that the second it asked you to grow. She didn't reply, because she couldn't. I walked back inside, leaving her in the garden with the wind chimes and her pride, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt lighter. Not healed, not whole, but lighter. She didn't follow me. She didn't need to. She knew. The power had shifted. And this was only the middle of the story. 3 days. That's how long she waited before trying to twist the knife back in. Not a call. Not a visit. Not even one of her cryptic little messages with sad lyrics or thinly veiled guilt trips. No, she switched tactics. She went strategic. On the 4th day, I got a call from our joint accountant, Matt. A guy who always wore too much cologne and talked like he was auditioning for a podcast. Hey, Tyler. Just wanted to confirm. Are you guys really moving forward with dissolving the shared assets? I nearly dropped my coffee. I'm sorry, what? He stuttered, immediately backtracking. Oh, I thought you were both on the same page. I got an email from her, said to start reviewing the split. Mention the house, the accounts, the business, everything. I didn't respond right away. My mind was doing that slow, boiling churn again. But it wasn't rage. Not this time. It was clarity. She wasn't trying to talk anymore. She was trying to strip the table clean before I could sit back down. After all, why apologize when you can erase the mess before anyone notices? I hung up, walked out to the back patio of my sister's house, and sat there for a long time with Max, our dog, curled at my feet. He was still mine, still loyal. The only thing that hadn't shifted beneath me. She thought this was chess. She didn't realize I'd already flipped the board. I texted her just 3 words. You moved fast. She replied instantly. Just tying up loose ends. I assumed you wanted this clean. Clean. She was using sanitized language for what was essentially a cold execution of everything we built. Not a hint of remorse. Not a question about how I felt. No check-in to ask if I needed time, space, clarity, just lawyers and spreadsheets. But the real twist? She made a mistake. A small one. But those are the ones that crack open the door. In one of the shared drive folders we'd used for household planning, bills, receipts, vacations, I found a document she forgot to delete. A scanned letter. Addressed to Caleb. Dated over a month ago. Before the hotel. Before the dinner party. Before the mirror message. It was short. 2 paragraphs. She'd been planning to leave me. For him. But it never happened. The letter talked about starting fresh and how she was tired of pretending, how she couldn't look into Tyler's eyes and feel anything real anymore. She even mentioned the city they'd talked about moving to, Portland. But the signature was never written. Just a typed name. A draft. Abandoned. She changed her mind. Not because she came to her senses. Not because she loved me. But because Caleb apparently had second thoughts. He bailed. And she pivoted. She didn't stay with me out of loyalty. She stayed because Plan B fell apart. And she couldn't stand being alone with herself. That knowledge did something strange to me. I laughed. Not the bitter kind. Not sad or enraged or desperate. A real, honest, amused laugh. Because for the first time since this entire circus began, I wasn't the one being lied to. She was. Caleb played her. Sold her a fantasy. Soaked up the praise and attention, then dipped the second she tried to make it permanent. And she had no idea I knew. So I took that letter, printed it, mailed it to her boutique. Not our house, not her email, her place of pride. I knew she checked that mailbox herself. No note, no extra words, just her words, in her voice, staring back at her from inside her own domain. 2 days later, she called me. Didn't text. Didn't email. She called. I didn't answer. She called again. Then a third time. Finally, a message. You've made your point. What do you want from me? And that was it. The shift. The moment where she realized she wasn't driving anymore. She wasn't even in the front seat. I waited 6 hours. Then I replied, everything you never gave me, honesty, humility, and the truth. We'll start there. No reply. But I knew her. She'd reply. Because narcissists don't fear endings. They fear being written out of the story. And now I was the one holding the pen. 3 days of silence. She didn't respond to my message. Not a word. And that told me everything. Because silence wasn't her nature. It was her last resort. When she had no angle, no performance, no prepared script, she went mute. She wasn't ignoring me. She was recalculating. Spinning the gears in her head, trying to figure out how to rewrite the narrative now that I'd sent her own betrayal back to her. Packaged and sealed. On the 4th day, I got an email. Not a call. Not a voice note. An email. Subject. For the record, that alone made me exhale through my nose. Cold, sterile. Like she was responding to a subpoena. The message read, you got what you wanted. You exposed everything. You embarrassed me. You hurt me. Caleb is gone, yes. And maybe I deserved it. But this war isn't going to make either of us feel better. If you want closure, say it. If you want me to say sorry, I will. But dragging this out like a slow execution? That's on you now. Closure. That word. She really believed this was about closure. I didn't reply right away. I stared at the screen, wondering how someone could reduce betrayal to such sterile terms. She talked like we were finalizing a business deal, not picking through the bones of a 10-year relationship she'd shattered with a smirk and a shrug. I closed the laptop, went outside, took Max on the longest walk of his life. Past the neighborhood, past the park, past the corner cafe where she once surprised me with cake for a fake anniversary she invented just to be cute. I remembered every detail. The sparkle in her eye back then. The way she smiled like we were writing some fairy tale that would last decades. And then I remembered the message from Caleb. The one I'd found in her deleted folder. You sure he's not gonna go nuts when he finds out? I don't need your husband showing up at my gym. That's all she was to him. A liability. A fling with a potential fallout. And to me, a liar who thought consequences could be managed like calendar invites. That night I replied, this isn't about closure. Closure is what you get when the door closes clean. You left it wide open and lit the house on fire. This is about truth. You've told yours in whispers. Now I want it out loud. She didn't reply that night, but she showed up the next day. Uninvited. Same beige trench coat. Different energy. Hair down. Makeup half done like she wanted to look casual but rehearsed. My sister wasn't home, so I let her in. I didn't offer tea. She didn't ask to sit. Okay, she said. You want the truth? Here it is. And then she said it. Not all of it. Not yet. But more than I expected. I wasn't just with Caleb, she said, voice barely holding. There were two others. One before him. One after. My stomach didn't drop. It didn't twist. It froze. She kept talking. The one before wasn't serious. It was nothing. A distraction. I was angry. I told myself it was harmless. The one after was to get back at Caleb. He ghosted me. I didn't want to feel abandoned. I leaned against the wall. That's the best part, I said quietly. You didn't cheat because you were unloved. You cheated because you needed to feel wanted. Constantly. Desperately. She looked down, fingers trembling. I hated who I was, she said. But I hated feeling invisible even more. That's the difference between us, I said. I was willing to fix us. You were willing to erase me. And then she did what I never expected. She sat on the floor. Right there. On my sister's hardwood floor. Like something inside her broke and she couldn't hold the weight anymore. I don't know how to be okay with myself, she whispered. I kept hoping someone would fill the gap. You. Caleb. Anyone. I didn't touch her. Didn't kneel beside her. I watched. Because this wasn't a moment of connection. It was a moment of reckoning. You want forgiveness? I asked. She nodded. Then own it. Say it. Not just to me. Say it to the people you lied to. The friends you manipulated. The version of yourself you sold to everyone while painting me as the problem. She looked up. You want me to tell them? I want you to stop hiding. You burned this house down with your fire. Now stand in the ash and admit it was you who struck the match. Silence. Then, okay. Just one word. Small. Fractured. But it wasn't a surrender. It was a start, she posted it. Not a blog, not a half-buried Instagram story with vague captions. A full post. Public. Her personal Facebook account, which she used to curate like a showroom, flawless, photogenic, her boutique tagged in every photo, her smile polished, her captions poetic. This time, there were no filters. No coy metaphors. Just a wall of raw, exposed sentences. I've lied to a lot of people. I lied to my friends, to my family, to my husband. I betrayed trust. I disrespected love. I tried to cover my guilt with justifications, but the truth is I was selfish. I hurt someone who loved me fully, and I did it more than once. There's no excuse for what I did, and I don't expect forgiveness. But I won't hide anymore. The comments started slow. A few confused emojis. One of her boutique friends dropped a neutral heart like she couldn't decide what side to pick. Then came the texts. One of her oldest friends messaged me, "Is this real?" I didn't reply. It wasn't about me anymore. This was her move. Her exposure. And to her credit, she didn't delete it. She didn't backpedal or water it down later. For once, she let the judgment fall and just stayed in it. And the fallout? Oh, it was beautiful. 2 clients pulled out from her boutique partnership within the week. Not because she cheated, but because people hate lies, especially the kind wrapped in Pinterest-worthy packaging. A close friend unfollowed her. Her mother called me directly, voice shaking, asking if it was all true. I told her yes, and she cried. For her. For me. For the image of the daughter she thought she raised. Meanwhile, she texted me every night. Short messages. Sometimes just "still here." Other times, "I know I don't deserve your time." She didn't ask to come back. She didn't beg for a second chance. And that's what made it worse. Because now came the unexpected twist in me. The anger was fading. That terrified me more than the betrayal ever did. Because once the anger fades, all that's left is truth. And my truth was this: I didn't want her back. Not even a little. Not because of pride. But because somewhere between the first lie and the last confession, the part of me that loved her had finally died. It didn't scream. It didn't cry. It just stopped. One night, around 1 a.m., I called her. First time since she confessed everything. She picked up fast, like she'd been waiting every night, breath held. Hello? I didn't say her name. Didn't ask how she was. Just said, "Tell me one thing." She waited. Why me? I asked. Why cheat on me instead of just leaving? There was a pause. Then her voice, thin but not breaking, spoke truth for the first time without flinching. Because you were the only person who didn't ask me to be someone else. And I hated that. I hated that you loved me as I was, and I still wanted more. Silence. Heavy. Like confession became cement. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I hung up. The next morning I began the paperwork. Not just the divorce, but the clean slate. I closed the shared accounts, sold the furniture she picked, donated the framed quotes she hung around the house like motivational lies. I kept one thing, that receipt from the hotel, framed it, not as a memory of pain, but as a reminder that survival isn't always noble. It's sometimes just about waking up, standing still, and refusing to carry someone else's fire anymore. By the end of the week, I mailed her the final papers. Inside, one note. You dimmed my soul, but I relit it without you. She never replied. The final days of a dying marriage don't come with a dramatic crescendo. No door slamming, no final scream echoing down a hallway. They unravel in silence, like a rope slipping loose from a knot that was only pretending to hold. After I mailed her the papers, she vanished. No more texts. No got it. No I'll sign. Just digital quiet, like a ghost trying to decide if it wanted to haunt or just drift. And I let her, because I wasn't waiting anymore. The strange. Freedom doesn't feel like a rush. It feels like stillness. Like walking into a room and realizing you no longer have to explain yourself to someone who never wanted to understand you. I started sleeping better, eating without that heavy, invisible pressure pressing against my chest. Max even barked less. Maybe he sensed it too, that the storm had finally moved offshore. Then 10 days after I'd sent the envelope, it came back, unopened, returned to sender. I stared at it like it might explain itself. The handwriting was hers, perfectly centered. That annoying neatness she applied to everything except the parts of her life that actually mattered. There was a sticky note attached. Let's meet first. One last time. You deserve that. No, I didn't deserve it. But I wanted it. Closure doesn't come in clean packages. Sometimes you have to walk into the fire one last time just to feel the temperature drop when you walk back out. So I agreed. We met at the cafe where we'd had our first real fight, back when fights were about dumb things like forgetting to RSVP to weddings or buying the wrong brand of almond milk. It was neutral ground. Nothing sentimental. Nothing sharp. She was already there when I arrived. Dressed simply. No makeup. No rehearsed softness. She looked tired, like honesty had aged her more than time ever did. I won't take long, she said, standing as I approached. I sat. Looked at her. Waited. She placed a pen and the signed divorce papers on the table. Not in a dramatic flourish, just like she was paying a bill. Then she slid over a second envelope. Smaller. Thicker. What's that? I asked. My part, she said. Everything I couldn't say without making it sound like an apology or an excuse. I didn't touch it. She looked down, fiddled with the ring she no longer wore. I thought the affair would make me feel powerful. Like I had control. Like I was wanted again. But it just made me smaller. I let her speak. I didn't come here to ask for forgiveness. I just didn't want to disappear like a coward. You disappeared a long time ago, I said. This is just your body catching up. She smiled. Not hurt, just tired. I know. I stood, slid the signed papers into my coat, and nodded once. No handshake, no hug, just a look. A long, final look at a woman who had once been my entire world. Now just a collapsed city I never wanted to rebuild. She whispered as I turned to leave. Take care of Max. I stopped at the door. I already do. I didn't look back. At home, I opened the second envelope. Inside were 3 letters. One to me, one to her mother, and one, surprisingly, to herself. I read mine once, then burned it. Because closure doesn't live in ink. It lives in actions. She said goodbye in words. I had already said goodbye in spirit. It's been 6 months since I walked out of that cafe. I remember the weather, gray, brittle. The kind of day that doesn't ask for attention. It just exists. Like I did back then. Half alive, half deciding. Now the house is mine. Not the old one, the one we bought together, the one that smelled like her perfume and betrayal. I sold it, took the loss, packed what mattered, and started over. Small place, fewer windows but more peace. Max adapted faster than I did. Dogs don't hold grudges. They just learn new rhythms. My rhythm changed too. No more waiting for a text to ruin my day. No more overthinking silence. No more mirror fog with cryptic messages. Just mornings with coffee, evenings with music, and a version of myself I almost forgot existed. One that didn't feel like he was failing every single day at loving someone who resented being loved. I saw her once, 2 months ago. I was at a bookstore, flipping through a novel I had no intention of buying, when she walked in, alone. No makeup again. Same trench coat. She didn't see me, or maybe she did and decided not to act. Either way, she didn't look like the woman I married. She looked smaller. Not physically. Spiritually. Like someone who used to speak in fire but now whispered in smoke. I didn't say anything. Didn't feel anything. That was the moment I knew I wasn't healing anymore. I was healed. People talk about closure like it's a scene in a movie. A final cry, a hug, a letter. But closure is boring. It's waking up and not checking your phone for someone who stopped being yours. It's realizing their name no longer tastes like acid in your mouth. It's silence that doesn't hurt. I kept one thing from the marriage. A line she once wrote. I found it again in an old notebook when I was packing boxes weeks before I sold the house. He lit my fire. You dimmed my soul. Call it marriage. I call it mourning. At the time, I thought it was poetry. Then I thought it was prophecy. Now, I realize it was a confession. Not about me. About her. She was the fire. She was the dimmed soul. She was the mourning long before the marriage even cracked. I framed it. Hung it in my office. Not out of spite. Out of gratitude. Because that fire, it burned down every lie I let live. And in its ash, I found truth. To anyone reading this, who feels like their world is unraveling, like they're holding on to someone who keeps choosing everything but them. Remember this. Love doesn't hurt when it's real. And if someone's warmth feels like a spotlight, not a hearth, they were never trying to build a home. They were trying to be worshipped. You deserve more than that. You deserve peace. I found mine, not in her absence, but in my own presence. And that's the real ending.